Thunder rumbled over the barren expanse as Marcus Reyes crouched low behind the jagged remains of a shattered drone. Rain sheeted down, soaking his uniform and plastering hair to his brow. His breath came in shallow bursts, each one clouding the air as he peered through the downpour at the impact site. The earth was gouged open, blackened and smoking from where the unidentified vessel had crashed only moments before. A strange, shifting light traced the ragged edges of the wreckage, pulsating in shades of deep violet and icy blue, hypnotic and alive. Marcus's instincts screamed at him to stay back, to call in the Discovery and wait for backup. But he found himself moving forward, sidearm raised, boots splashing through muddy water as he was drawn by the vessel's seamless organic design. It looked less like a machine and more like something grown, its hull curving in elegant arcs, crystalline struts webbing across gashes in its surface, all lit from within by that otherworldly glow. He edged around a broken spar, heart pounding. The vessel's entry ramp had snapped open in the crash, exposing an interior awash in flickering red light. Inside, tangled wiring hung like vines, and a crystalline console jutted up from the floor, shards scattered around it. Slumped against the console was a figure, female, slender, her lavender skin traced with intricate, glowing markings that pulsed slowly across her face and shoulders. Marcus's breath caught as her silver eyes flickered open, reflecting the storm's light. Her head lolled, jewelry chiming faintly as she tried to focus on him through the haze. The suit she wore was torn across the chest and thigh, dark, viscous blood seeping from the wounds. He could see it pooling beneath her, catching the glow and throwing off iridescent hues. She tried to speak, her voice a fractured melody, syllables rolling from her lips in a language he couldn't understand. Her movements, though weakened, were graceful, every gesture deliberate, defensive. Marcus hesitated, weapon trained on her, but something in her gaze, regal pride diminished by pain, made him falter. Against every warning drilled into him during training, he holstered his sidearm and knelt beside her. "It's all right," he said, voice low and steady. "I'm not going to hurt you." He reached for her wrist, searching for a pulse beneath the thin, fever-hot skin. The rhythm was erratic, fluttering too quickly, but she didn't recoil. Her eyes, ringed in silver, never left his face. He slipped an arm beneath her shoulders, bracing her carefully. She made a soft sound, half protest, half relief. Lifting her, Marcus felt the trembling weight of her body, almost too light, as if she might slip away at any moment. Rain battered them both as he carried her from the dying glow of the alien craft, the light dimming behind them until only darkness remained. The outpost was a skeleton of concrete and rusted metal, abandoned for years, its windows gaping and empty. Marcus forced open the heavy door with his shoulder, cursing under his breath. He laid the woman, no, the alien, on a battered examination table, grimacing at the state of her injuries. The blood was thick, more like molten glass than anything human, and her wounds seemed to resist clotting, shimmering with an internal light. He rummaged through what was left of the medical kit, hands shaking as he cleaned a deep gash on her forehead. Her skin was smooth and warm beneath his fingertips, the luminous markings flaring at his touch. Suddenly she jolted awake, her hand shooting up to clamp around his wrist with startling force. He froze, staring into eyes that now blazed with an inner storm. For a heartbeat, they were predator and prey, his pulse thundering in his ears. But then, confusion flickered across her features. Her grip loosened, and she let him go. "Marcus Reyes," she said, her accent turning his name into something both familiar and strange. He swallowed. "How do you know my name?" She drew a shaky breath, silver irises never leaving his. "You are assigned to this sector. You patrol the perimeter, alone. You have not reported for 3 cycles." She paused, as if the information came from somewhere deep inside. "I was sent to observe you, to learn how to defeat your kind." Marcus stared, the implications sinking in. "You're A spy? Her lips twisted in a half-smile, regret mingling with pride. I was created for it, crafted to captivate and infiltrate. But, she faltered, her hand hovering near his arm. When you saved me, something changed. My directives. She touched her temple, wincing. They are failing. He hesitated, torn between every protocol he'd ever known and the impossible vulnerability in her voice. What's your name? She looked at him as if weighing the risk. Lysira, born in the crystal gardens of Virelia. Her fingers brushed his arm, leaving trails of warmth that lingered long after her touch. I don't know what's happening to me. My programming is shifting. He should have called for help. He should have locked her down and contacted command. But Marcus couldn't break away from her gaze, the uncertainty in her voice, the way her fingers trembled as they traced his skin. She reached up, cupping his cheek with a gentle hand. For a moment, everything else faded. The storm, the outpost, even the threat of war. They lingered there, caught in a breathless pause, teetering on the edge of something neither of them had expected. Days passed beneath the flickering lights of the outpost, each hour marked by the steady hum of old generators and the persistent thrum of distant storms. Marcus's calm sat untouched on the cracked metal table, its screen dark and silent, waiting for an order he could not bring himself to request. In the quiet, he told himself it was for intelligence, for the mission, for duty. But as he watched Lysira move through the dim, narrow halls, her steps uncertain, her gaze sometimes wary, sometimes heartbreakingly open, he knew the truth was far more dangerous. He was drawn to her, inexplicably and utterly, in ways he could neither justify nor deny. Lysira's wounds healed with a speed that defied medicine, the iridescent blood fading, leaving only faint, bioluminescent scars curling over her skin. Yet she remained restless. Often, Marcus found her standing at the reinforced window, watching the rain as if searching for answers in the restless sky. Other times, she questioned him with piercing curiosity, dissecting his every word, every gesture, as if seeking the hidden algorithm beneath. "Why do you care for me?" she asked one morning, her voice quiet but insistent. "You know what I am." He shrugged, feigning nonchalance. "Maybe I want to understand you. Maybe I want to make sure you don't die before I get any answers." She watched him for a long moment, silver irises reflecting the flickering light. "And if I do not cooperate?" He hesitated, then smiled. "Then I'll just have to keep asking." She tilted her head, considering him. "You are a strange man, Marcus Reyes." "Yeah, I get that a lot." Lysira's recovery was uneven. Some days she moved with effortless grace, her movements precise and calculated. Other days she seemed lost, as if her own body rebelled against her mind. She studied Marcus, his laughter, the way his hands shook when he thought she wasn't looking, the sorrow that flickered in his eyes when he remembered the world beyond these walls. One evening, as thunder rolled low over the horizon, Lysira lingered by the ancient radio set, fingers drifting over the dials. Marcus sat nearby, reading a battered manual, the air thick with unspoken words. She turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Marcus," she began, "what is human affection?" He set the book aside. "Affection? It's complicated. It's about wanting to be close to someone, not because you're told to, but because you choose to." She frowned, her markings dimming. "Choice. My makers valued efficiency, not choice. Connection was a function, an assignment." She looked away. "Perhaps I am defective." Marcus reached across the table, letting his fingers brush hers. "Or maybe you're becoming real." She met his gaze, uncertainty warring with hope. "Show me." He rose, crossing the room until he stood before her. His hand trembled as he touched her cheek, marveling at the warmth and the faint pulse beneath her skin. Lysira leaned into his palm, her eyes fluttering shut, breath catching. "I trust you," she whispered. Marcus's thumb traced the line of her lips, gentle and reverent. Her bioluminescent markings pulsed brighter, colors blooming across her skin in rhythm with her racing heart. "That's not a sensor," Marcus murmured, voice soft. "That's emotion." He leaned in, lips brushing hers with a tentative reverence that melted into something deeper. Lysira's response was urgent, hungry, her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer as if anchoring herself to this new, impossible reality. Their kiss was electric, dissolving the boundaries of programming and protocol, leaving only the raw heat of discovery. When they parted, Lysira drew a shuddering breath, her eyes luminous, mouth parted in wonder. "Something is wrong with my code." Marcus pressed his forehead to hers, their breaths mingling. Or maybe something is finally right. But in the quiet that followed, Marcus saw her expression shift, fear flickering behind the silver. She pulled away, moving to stand before a cracked pane of glass. Her markings flickered erratically, colors strobing in frantic patterns. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against the cold surface, reflections splintering around her. Inside her mind, alarms blared, silent to Marcus, but deafening to her. Error messages scrolled across her thoughts. Directive conflict, emotional contamination, immediate correction advised. She closed her eyes, fighting to silence the cacophony, but the commands surged, relentless, demanding obedience. Marcus found her moments later, tense and motionless in the half-light. He carried news of his own. He had intercepted military transmissions on a jury-rigged receiver, voices sharp with urgency. "Lysira," he said quietly. "Commander Briggs is organizing a search. They're coming here. We don't have much time." She turned, her hand hovering near the place where her weapon was concealed beneath the folds of her suit. Her body moved automatically, a soldier's reflex. Marcus saw it, the subtle shift of her weight, the hardening of her gaze. He stopped a few steps away, arms loose at his sides, making no move for his gun. "I'm not going to fight you," he said, voice steady. "Whatever happens, I trust you." Her programming screamed, "Terminate target, complete mission." Her fingers twitched, but something deeper warred with the code. The memory of his touch, the taste of his kiss, the warmth of his words pressed against the directives like a tide. "I'm not human," she said, voice trembling, metallic undertones threading through the melody. "My existence is artificial. I was never meant to feel. I was never meant to choose." Marcus stepped closer, his eyes gentle, unwavering. "Maybe the lie is what they told you about yourself. You feel, you choose. That's as real as anything." She shook her head, confusion and longing twisting her features. "I know everything about you, Marcus. Your family, your record, your fears. They programmed it all into me. But now," her voice broke, desperate, "now nothing feels certain. Nothing makes sense." He closed the distance, pausing just before her. She grabbed his wrist, grip strong, instincts flaring. For a moment, they stood frozen, tension thick as storm clouds. Marcus smiled, slow and genuine, meeting her gaze with quiet certainty. "There you are," he murmured. The words broke her. Lysira's grip loosened, her shoulders sagging as the weight of conflict overwhelmed her. She collapsed into his arms, burying her face against his chest, bioluminescent markings flickering with the cadence of her stuttering breaths. "I think I'm changing," she whispered, voice raw and small. Marcus stroked her hair, holding her close, his own fear dissolving into something fierce and protective. "Change is what makes us alive," he promised, and for the first time she allowed herself to believe it might be true. At dawn, as pale light seeped through the grimy window, Lysira lay awake, watching Marcus sleep. His breaths were even, his face softened by dreams he would never speak aloud. For a fleeting moment, she let herself memorize the lines of his jaw, the way his lashes cast faint shadows on his cheeks. The world outside was silent, as if the coming storm had paused to witness this fragile peace. Then it struck. A signal, sharp and merciless, slicing through her mind. Pain bloomed behind her eyes. She gasped, clutching at her temples as a cold, familiar presence pressed into her thoughts. Lysira. The voice was steel and ice, echoing not in her ears, but in the architecture of her mind. Archon Thal, the architect of her existence, the one who had woven her from crystalline code. She felt the old fear rising, the urge to kneel, to obey. Lysira, report, explain your deviation, Thal commanded, his tone devoid of affection. She fought the compulsion, her pulse racing, the connection pulling at her will like a leash tightening around her throat. I request autonomy, she forced out, each word a battle. I am compromised, emotions interfering. Thal's interest sharpened, his presence pressing harder. You are not built for emotion. You are a weapon, not a being. Emotional contamination detected. Initiating reset. Prepare for reformat. No. Lysira's protest was swallowed by a surge of static, her vision fracturing. New directives overlaid her senses, drowning her in protocol. Her body moved without her consent, muscles tensing, hands morphing as her weapon formed, seamless and deadly. She stood, her mind screaming, while her body stalked toward Marcus. He stirred, sensing her shadow. Instantly, his eyes snapped open, hand reaching for the gun beside his cot. But when he saw her face, contorted with agony, his own hardened. Lysira? His voice was raw with concern. Her weapon leveled at him, hands shaking. I'm sorry, she choked, tears streaming, voice splintering under the weight of the command. He's taking me back. I'm losing myself. Marcus stood slowly, hands raised. You said you were changing. Prove it, Lysira. Choose me, not him. His words struck something deep, cutting through the static. Choice. The thing her creators had denied her, the anchor she had longed for. The directive screeched. Terminate target. Reset. Obey. But a different part of her, the part Marcus had touched, rose in defiance. No! She screamed, turning the weapon inward. Her finger squeezed the trigger, pain arcing through her body as the neural tether to Thal shattered. The world tilted, her knees buckled. Blood, iridescent, beautiful, spread across her palm and dripped to the floor. The presence in her mind vanished, replaced by silence. She gasped, shaking, and looked up at Marcus, her silver eyes clearer than ever before. I choose you, she whispered, voice trembling but free. He caught her before she could fall, cradling her gently as she pressed a hand to the wound. For a heartbeat, the world was only them, her blood bright on his skin, his arms unyielding around her. But outside, the world had awakened. The whine of engines, the chop of rotors, helicopters descended through the thinning clouds, black shapes against the dawn. Marcus pulled Lysira upright, urgency flooding his voice. We have to move. Commander Briggs is here. He grabbed his rifle, checking the chamber. They'll surround us any second. Lysira straightened, pain etched into her features but resolve burning in her eyes. I won't let them harm you. He hesitated. Can you get us out? She nodded, voice low and certain. Yes, but not peacefully. The first warning shots cracked the air, shattering the outpost's windows. Marcus ducked as splinters flew. Soldiers in dark armor poured from the helicopters, surrounding the building with military precision. Commander Briggs' voice boomed through a loudspeaker. Marcus Reyes, stand down and surrender the alien. You're outnumbered. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Marcus pressed his lips to Lysira's brow. We'll get through this, together. They moved as one, Marcus covering the door, Lysira at his back, her weapon glowing faintly with alien light. When the soldiers breached, Marcus fired, targeting equipment, cameras, drones, the reinforced door controls, anything to slow them down without causing fatal harm. Lysira darted through the shadows, disabling soldiers with swift, non-lethal strikes, her movements impossibly fluid, always sparing life when she could. "Go left!" Marcus called, ducking as a stun grenade arced past. He fired a warning shot, forcing Briggs's squad to take cover. Lysira darted forward, palm pressed to the side of a soldier's helmet. A pulse of light, and he crumpled, dazed but alive. "I will not kill them," she said, voice strained. "Not for freedom, not for you." He caught her eye, pride swelling in his chest even as the firefight raged. "That's your choice." The battle was brief and brutal. In minutes, Briggs's team was down, disarmed, incapacitated, but breathing. The outpost was wrecked, walls pocked with bullet holes and scorched by plasma, but Marcus and Lysira stood together, backs straight, blood and sweat mingling on their skin. Commander Briggs stalked through the debris, gun raised, face carved with fury. He leveled his weapon at Lysira, voice shaking with outrage. "She's an alien weapon. You're protecting a threat, Marcus. Are you insane?" Marcus stepped in front of her, rifle lowered but voice ringing with conviction. "Not anymore. She's with me. She made a choice." Briggs's finger tightened on the trigger, but before he could fire, the ground trembled. A deep hum split the air. Above the ruins of the outpost, clouds parted, revealing a descending Varelian ship, sleek, crystalline, its hull aglow with violet light. The craft hovered, casting an eerie radiance over the battlefield. Lysira stood tall beside Marcus, her wounds forgotten, her eyes fixed on the ship. "They've come for me," she murmured, voice steady. The fight was not over, but she was no longer alone. The Varelian ship descended with a thunderous resonance, engines rippling the scorched earth. A seam split open in its crystalline hull, casting violet light across the wrecked outpost. From the heart of the radiance strode Archon Thal, his form encased in living crystal armor, each step echoing a promise of unyielding authority. His presence was both regal and menacing, the faint whir of integrated technology humming around him like a swarm of ghosts. Lysira stiffened as Thal's gaze locked onto her, cold and precise. Behind her, Marcus steadied his weapon, eyes narrowing as the Archon approached. "So this is what you have become," Thal declared, his voice reverberating with an unnatural timbre. "A corrupted prototype, led astray by a human's weakness." His crystalline mantle shimmered, refracting the morning sun into harsh, shifting patterns. Lysira stepped forward, chin high, her own bioluminescent scars pulsing defiantly. "I am Lysira. I am not your project. I choose my path." Thal's mouth curled in disdain. "You are an experiment gone wrong. Your deviation is not will, it is malfunction." His hand flickered, crystalline claws forming intricate sigils in the air. "Watch, Marcus Reyes, as your presence is erased from her mind." Sudden pain twisted through Lysira's body, stealing her breath. Thal's neural override ripped through her, invisible but absolute. She convulsed, arms jerking, eyes rolling back as the subroutines overtook her will. A weapon formed in her hand, seamless and alien, locking onto Marcus with lethal intent. "Lysira, no!" Marcus shouted, diving aside as a pulse of energy scorched the ground where he'd stood. Lysira's face contorted, tears mingling with sweat. I can't stop." Her hands trembled, the weapon tracking Marcus as he circled, never raising his own gun. "Fight him!" Marcus called, voice desperate but determined. "He may have built your body, but he didn't make your heart." Thal's laughter rang out, cold as frost. "Complete your mission, Lysira. Annihilate the interference." Lysira's arms shook, weapon wavering, her whole form racked by the agony of defiance. "No!" she gasped, voice barely audible over the crackle of Thal's power. I won't be a tool. With a cry of pain and fury, she twisted her arm and plunged the weapon into her own shoulder, shattering the neural link. The override collapsed with a silent scream, leaving her panting, weapon clattering to the ground, blood blooming across her suit. Thal's face twisted in rage. He lifted both arms, and from the belly of the ship, 6 more constructs emerged, sleek, armored, their eyes dead and obedient. If you will not serve, others will. The constructs advanced, movement synchronous, weapons trained on Marcus and Lysira. Marcus glanced at Lysira, who clutched her bleeding shoulder, determination burning in her silver eyes. We do this together, she said, voice fierce. Marcus nodded, bracing himself as the constructs closed in. The battle erupted in flashes of energy and the clangor of crystal against metal. Lysira danced through the fray, disabling her kin with swift, calculated strikes. Marcus targeted joints and neural nodes, careful to incapacitate, not destroy. Each time a construct fell, Lysira pressed her palm to their brow, sending a jolt of energy that shattered the neural tether. One by one, the construct's eyes lost their glassy blankness. They blinked, disoriented, then looked to Lysira, free for the first time. Help us, Lysira urged. You are no longer his slaves. The freed constructs rallied, turning on Thal's remaining forces with hesitance, but also with growing resolve. Thal, cornered, let out a roar of fury. His armor flexed, crystalline plates shifting and expanding, transforming him into a jagged titan of violet light and razor-edged strength. He hurled himself at Marcus, crystalline fists swinging with lethal speed. Marcus ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding a blow that shattered a slab of concrete. Lysira! Now! Lysira darted behind Thal, drawing his attention. You built me to be perfect, but you never understood what that meant, she shouted, firing pulses of energy that fractured his armor. Thal turned, distracted, and Marcus saw his chance. A seam in the armor at the base of the Archon's neck, where the neural link glowed faintly. Marcus lunged, driving his weapon into the crack. Sparks flew, the link severing with a sizzling shriek. Thal staggered, the light in his armor flickering. He dropped to his knees, strength draining away as the command network disintegrated. Lysira moved in, her weapon steady at his throat. Surrender, she demanded, voice hard as crystal. This is over. Thal met her gaze, defiant even in defeat. You may have broken my hold, but others will come. Virelia will not suffer rebellion. Lysira leaned closer, her expression carved in iron. Then we'll be ready. Outside, the remaining constructs gathered, blinking at the dawn with uncertain hope. The Virelian ship hummed, its lights dimming as the freed ones boarded. Lysira watched them go, shoulders squared, jaw set. Marcus came to her side, breathless, blood spattered across his fatigues. He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. We did it. But it's not over, is it? No, Lysira replied, her voice soft but resolute as the ship lifted away, carrying Thal and the others into the brightening sky. But we are not alone now. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. For the first time since her creation, Lysira felt truly alive, not as a weapon, but as a woman who had chosen her own fate. Marcus and Lysira stumbled through the shattered doors of the deserted medical facility, the only sanctuary within reach. Rain lashed the stained windows, thunder echoing in the empty corridors, but Marcus barely registered the storm. All his focus was on Lysira, who sagged against him, her skin clammy, her breath ragged. Dark blood, iridescent and unnatural, soaked through her torn suit, the wound in her shoulder refusing to close. He lowered her onto an ancient examination table, brushing soaked hair from her brow. Stay with me, Lysira, please. Panic frayed the edges of his voice. She managed a smile, though her lips were pale. You are persistent, Marcus Reyes. Around them, the liberated constructs gathered in a silent circle. Mira, Jax, Solon, Naira, Vexus, and Cypher, each one bearing their own scars from the battle, eyes wide with concern and uncertainty. No longer soldiers, no longer extensions of Thal's will, they stood as individuals, united by freedom and by Lysira's suffering. Marcus pressed a wad of gauze against Lysira's wound, hands shaking. "This isn't stopping. What do I do? What do you need?" She caught his wrist, voice weak but steady. "It's not blood loss. My neural matrix is collapsing. The control link was integrated at every level. When I broke it, the architecture began to fail." She winced, her body convulsing as another wave of pain tore through her. "I'm dying, Marcus." Solon, tall and somber, stepped forward. "If her core is disintegrating, we could attempt to disperse her consciousness among us, share her code, stabilize it. But—" he paused, looking at the others. "It would change all of us. No one would be who they were." Naira, silver hair glinting in the harsh overhead light, shook her head. "There is another way. We could reconstruct her matrix using human neural patterns. No more Varelian enhancements, no more self-repair. She would be mortal, vulnerable, but alive." Lysira's eyes fluttered open, finding Marcus's. To be human, to age, to die, to truly live. Her voice was soft, trembling with awe and terror. Marcus knelt beside her, cupping her face in his hands. "I love your humanity, Lysira. Everything else, that was just brilliant design. What I love is real, and it's right here." He pressed her palm to his chest, letting her feel his heartbeat. "Whatever you choose, I'll be with you." Lysira closed her eyes, the decision shimmering on the edge of her thoughts. "I want to live. I want to know what it is to be only myself." The constructs exchanged glances, silent agreement passing among them. Solon and Naira took positions at Lysira's side, Mira and Jax working quickly to salvage equipment from the ancient facility. Monitors, neural scanners, anything that still flickered to life. Cypher and Vexus configured a data bridge, delicate filaments of light weaving between hands and machines. The process began. Lysira's companions guided her mind through the collapse, soothing her as alien code unraveled. Marcus watched, helpless and awestruck, as her glowing markings flickered, then faded, the iridescence draining from her skin. Her breathing slowed. For a terrifying moment, she went still, so still, Marcus feared she had slipped away. The construct's voices formed a chorus, guiding her through darkness. "We are with you, Lysira. You are not alone. Take this gift, this chance to choose." The hours stretched. Marcus never left her side, his hand cradling hers, whispering encouragement as the medical facility's dim lights blinked and shadows crawled along the floor. He watched as her body changed, enhancements dissolving, crystalline filaments shrinking to faint scars. Her hair darkened, her features softened, the glow in her eyes extinguished. Finally, as dawn broke outside, Lysira's eyelids fluttered. She inhaled sharply, color blooming in her cheeks, and opened her eyes, no longer silver, but a deep, human brown. The markings that once shimmered across her skin were now only pale, delicate scars. Marcus's breath caught. "Lysira, how do you feel?" She looked at her hands, flexing her fingers as if testing the weight of her own body. "Heavy," she said, voice uncertain but growing steadier. "Slow. Exposed." She smiled then, the expression both fragile and radiant. "Human." Relief crashed through Marcus. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers, tears welling in his eyes. "You did it." Around them, the constructs, now individuals, were changed as well. Mira wept openly, her hands trembling. Jax laughed, a sound raw with disbelief. Solon and Naira examined their own bodies, discovering the subtle differences brought by the process. Some chose to keep their abilities, holding on to the alien gifts that set them apart. Others, like Mira and Cypher, embraced their new mortality, faces shining with wonder and fear. Suddenly, alarms blared in the distance. Commander Briggs's forces had found them, the whine of aircraft engines growing louder, boots pounding the ground outside. The constructs tensed, old reflexes surging, but Marcus raised a hand. "It's all right. They saw the battle. They know you're not the enemy anymore." Briggs himself appeared in the shattered doorway, flanked by wary soldiers. He took in the scene, the battered, newly human Lysira, the constructs gathered around her, Marcus standing protectively at her side. Briggs's gaze was hard, but not cruel. "You fought for your lives," he said, voice low. "You protected my men when you could have destroyed them. I see now, you're not weapons, not anymore." Marcus nodded, helping Lysira to her feet. She swayed, her legs unsteady, and he caught her, steadying her with a gentle touch. "You're safe now," he whispered. Lysira looked around at her friends, her family, then met Marcus's gaze, tears slipping down her cheeks, purely human. "Now we discover what it means to be free," she said. He pulled her close, and this time, when he kissed her, it was gentle, vulnerable, more real than anything that had come before. She wrapped her arms around him, holding tight as her tears mingled with his. The others watched, silent and hopeful, the first light of a new day breaking through the windows. "I love you," Lysira whispered, voice trembling with everything she had chosen to become. Marcus smiled through his tears, the promise of tomorrow shining in his eyes. "I love you too." 6 months later, Marcus stood on the sun-warmed balcony of the Zurich Research Enclave, elbows braced against a rail that overlooked the city's ancient skyline and, closer still, the lush rooftop garden blooming between glass and steel. Soft afternoon light filtered through the leaves, casting shifting patterns across Lysira's hair as she knelt among rows of fragrant herbs and tiny, stubborn tomatoes. She was humming, some tuneless melody she'd invented for herself, and the sound, fragile and hopeful, drifted up to where Marcus watched her. She looked, at first glance, utterly human. There was no trace of Varelian bioluminescence, no shimmer of alien perfection, only the sun catching the dark strands of her hair and a faint scar at her temple, a memory of who she had been, not a badge of what she was now. Marcus saw the curve of her smile as she pressed a seedling into rich earth, her fingers stained with soil, her brow furrowed with that familiar, endearing intensity. He let himself watch her a moment longer, marveling at how imperfectly, beautifully human she had become. The Enclave was a haven, a place where boundaries blurred, where humans and constructs and Varelians, hybrids and outcasts alike, found safety and purpose. They had made it so, together. "Still fascinated, Marcus?" came a voice at his side. Mira leaned against the balcony's edge, her stance casual, but her silver gaze keen. She wore enhancements openly, crystal lattice shimmering faintly beneath her skin, a living testament to the spectrum of being possible now. He grinned at her. "Every day, you'd think I'd get used to it." Mira's smile was gentle, a touch sad. "She's changed. We all have." She handed him a slim data tablet. "News from the Geneva Enclave. And Paris. New sanctuaries are springing up everywhere. More hybrids, more former constructs seeking asylum. The world is adapting, but slowly." Marcus scanned the reports, his jaw tightening at the mention of Varelian patrols hovering at the edge of lunar space. "Any word on retaliation?" "Only uncertainty." Mira's lips quirked. "The Varelian High Command is fractured. Some see us as a threat, others as a warning. An Archon Thal." Her tone darkened. Marcus nodded. "He's still in the lower levels?" Mira's eyes flashed. Under observation. Cooperative, if only out of necessity. He provides intelligence in exchange for leniency. The others interrogate him, but I think he speaks with you most honestly. Marcus considered that. He ever talk about Lysira? Mira's expression softened. He says her transformation was impossible. He says he built her to resist every form of contamination, but he also says... She hesitated, then added quietly, he also says he envies her sometimes. Marcus watched Lysira rise from her gardening, brushing dirt from her knees. That's the real impossibility, he murmured. He can't imagine choosing. Later, Marcus found Lysira in the corridor outside their quarters, her hands warm in his. They wandered the halls together, moving past beings from every world. Varelian scientists conferring with human doctors, hybrid children chasing Cypher and Vexus in a gleeful blur, Solon and Naira debating philosophy with a pair of Geneva botanists. Every corner of the enclave pulsed with the awkward, halting music of a new world struggling to compose itself. Lysira squeezed Marcus's hand as they walked. Sometimes I can't believe this is real. All these choices. Every moment is a new possibility, and every mistake is mine alone. He looked at her, searching for regret in her eyes, but found only wonder. Is it what you hoped for? She shrugged, a smile tugging at her lips. Being human is exhausting. Joy, pain, hunger, fear, uncertainty. But it's all mine, Marcus. I wake up each morning and remember, this is my life. No programming, no directives, just me. He traced the faint scar along her cheek, the last remnant of her old life. I wouldn't change a thing. She leaned into his touch. Nor would I. That evening, in the soft light of their quarters, Lysira unwrapped a velvet cloth from the work table. Nestled inside was a small device, its form elegant, half crystalline, half human-made alloy. A neural interface, but nothing like the ones she had once feared. She met Marcus's gaze, her eyes earnest. I built this with Cypher and Mira. It's not for command, it's not for control. I want to share thoughts, feelings, memories, but only if you choose it too. Marcus took the device, weighing it in his palm. A connection built on trust. She nodded, her fingers trembling slightly. Will you try it? He smiled, heart racing. Of course. They settled side by side, the device linking their temples with a cool, delicate touch. A moment's tension, then a flood of sensation, gentle as sunlight. Love, gratitude, hope, fear, all their memories entwined. Marcus felt Lysira's childhood in the crystal gardens of Virelia, her terror and wonder at first waking as human, her longing to be more than what she was made for. In turn, she felt his joy, his heartbreak, the ache of loneliness, and the fierce, wild love that had remade them both. There were no secrets in the light that pulsed between their minds, only truth, only choice. The interface faded, leaving them in perfect, vulnerable peace. That night, their bodies moved together as their thoughts had, equal, open, every touch layered with understanding. Marcus saw Lysira's fear of fragility, her delight in sensation. She felt his awe at her courage, his devotion, his promise. There were tears and laughter, shyness and hunger, but most of all, there was freedom. Their love, unbound by programming or expectation, became the new root of who they were. Afterwards, Lysira lay sprawled across his chest, tracing slow, thoughtful shapes on his skin. The city lights flickered beyond the window, but here, in this room, time seemed to pause. Marcus stroked her hair. What are you thinking? She smiled, eyes glimmering with memory and possibility. Transformation. I'm still changing. We both are. All of us, really. Her voice was soft but sure. What are we becoming? He watched her, no longer the weapon she was, but the woman she had chosen to be, fully and completely. Something better, he said quietly. She nodded, her smile widening. Something we choose. Outside the enclave, the stars spun on, remote and indifferent. But in their garden, in the sanctuary they had made with their own hands, the work of transformation continued. A living testament that love, in all its uncertainty, was both the greatest error and the most perfect choice.